Microphone T8 check. Am I really muted? Oh, there we go. Hey. What about now? Is that better? Oh, literally just did 3 minutes. I'm going to have to edit that out. Anyways, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of In Liberty and Health. I literally now have 3.5 minutes to edit out of this. Oh, my God. How embarrassing. I thought I was a professional doing this stuff. As it turns out, the cord that goes in was just out just a little bit. Oh, man. I was on a roll there, too. Anyways, hopefully everyone's doing well. A little bit, I turned 31 this past weekend. It seems like every birthday after 30, it all just kind of goes downhill. I shouldn't say downhill, but it's just not as important. Before 30, every birthday feels cool. And then all of a sudden you hit 30 years old and it's like, oh, man, it's just like another day. I completely forgot it was even my birthday until about a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, actually, it's coming up on my birthday. That's odd. So, yeah, a little bit of a, I would say mostly good week. Got some bad news early in the week regarding some family stuff, but it's not a big deal. We'll get through it. Everything will be all right. Um, but yeah, lots to talk about and lots going on. So we have the Russian gaining territory in the Donbass and some other news regarding Russia. We're also going to talk about the cost of US versus Russia making weapons, which I found to be very, very interesting. I heard Kyle Anzalone cover this, so I figured I would cover it as well and kind of go into a little bit more depth about it, because I think the last show we were talking a little bit about the Chinese versus the US manufacturing and some of that stuff. So I think it's a little bit relevant to the overall topic. We also have some stuff regarding Venezuela, a war bill that got voted down, unfortunately, and also some plans of what they're going to do in regards to Venezuela and potential war in Nigeria. They're saying strikes, but we know how this normally goes. So I'm not thinking it's going to be any good. And of course, we're going to talk about the election of Zoran Mamdani, which should be very, very interesting. Um, I have lots of thoughts about that, and this is just like total boomer doom porn, which I'm all here for. Listen to the boomers scream and cry about this kind of stuff. Just it makes me laugh because it's not that serious, and it's also indicative of a few other things. So, the other thing I covered while I was unfortunately muted was new Substack is out. The review of Testament's Parabellum, their 14th release. Really like that album. There were some tracks that were a little bit weaker than others, but overall I thought it was very, very good. So feel free to go check that out. First time I jammed with the Common Crown in about a month. So very, very good to see the guys and the girl in the band, of course. I really, really enjoyed that, and always good to catch up with people. We're writing new material all the time, so I'm very, very excited to get that out to everybody and to keep working on that. I don't think I got anything else. 5 till midnight's going well. So we do Patreon episodes. We try to do one once a week. I'm definitely not there for every single one because just current obligations just make my schedule so that it makes it very difficult for me to attend a podcast twice a week. So I usually have a few hours blocked out to do this. And of course, 8 p.m. Eastern time every Monday night is when we go live on 5 till midnight. So make sure you go check that out. So lots to talk about today, and we will see what's all going on. I probably won't be joining Battlefield 6. I don't have it, and I'm just not my thing. So anyways, without further ado, please make sure you go to all the links below to figure out what I got going on and everywhere you can find me and support me. I really appreciate it. Please consider becoming a channel member for the lowly price of $2.99 a month. I'll probably be doing more members only content in the future. Just some clips and videos that will be released to members only, and then probably go public. Either that, or maybe I'll just have some members only content eventually. So without further ado, let me run the introduction and we will get into the rest of today's show. Let's go. And welcome back, everybody, one more time to the In Liberty and Health podcast, episode number 439. It's hard to believe I've been doing this for over 4 years, and over 400 episodes. It feels like just yesterday that I started back in the fateful month of October 2021. So lots to talk about, and yeah, let's I guess let's get into it. So from the Libertarian Institute, we are going to share this story. Russian forces make rapid gains in key Donbass city. Let's zoom in. This is actually published on my birthday, November 6th, 2025. So as you can see in Myrnograd, in the Donbass area, we're going to talk about this. Ukrainian forces are quickly losing territory and are nearly encircled in Pokrovsk. The nearly 2-year-long battle appears to be nearing its end. The Institute for the Study of War said on Tuesday that Russian forces had reached the central, northern, and northeastern city of Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is considered a pivotal to Ukrainian defenses in the Donbass region. South Front reports Russian forces are tightening the encirclement of Ukrainian forces near the city center, and Kiev's troops east of the city have retreated. Quote, unfortunately, everything is sad in the Pokrovsk region, wrote a Ukrainian drone unit calling itself the Peaky Blinders Peaky Blinders on the messaging app Telegram. The intensity of movements is so great that the drone operators simply do not have time to lift the drone overboard. So, I mean, just this kind of always seemed to be the inevitable kind of point of the war where Ukraine was just going to get their asses handed to them. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or asses about it. Unless the West was willing to put troops on the ground, Ukraine was always going to lose. And I don't think anybody has the political stomach to send Ukraine just loads and loads and loads of new ammunition. And the EU still is, and the US is to a degree, but to really make any headway against Russia, they would either have to once again deploy troops or just give them more firepower than I think is politically feasible at this time. So, likelihood of that happening is about zero. So, anyways, continuing on in the article here, antiwar.com, or no, I'm sorry. South Front said that Russian forces stepped up attacks along the front lines of the Kharkiv region and made gains in other areas of the Donbass. Antiwar.com's Ted Snyder explained that the loss of Pokrovsk will have three major impacts on Ukraine. The first is Pokrovsk is a key logistical hub, the loss of which will threaten Ukrainian armed forces' ability to supply their troops in the Donbass, he wrote at the American Conservative. The second is that beyond Pokrovsk, Russian troops may find mostly undefeated fields as they continue their march across Donbass. The third is Pokrovsk is home to many Ukraine's only coking coal mine. Apologies. As the Ukraine war is nearing the 4-year mark, Russian forces continue to slowly take territory. Ukraine has failed to mount any effective offensive to retake its territory in 3 years. While the front lines have only slowly changed, the missile and drone war is escalating. Reuters reported on Thursday that operations halted the Volgograd refinery. The plant has stopped. The CDU-5 was on fire. There's some damage to the hydrocracker, one of the sources explained. The outlet added that Ukraine fired 75 drones at Russia over the past 24 hours. The Russian Defense Ministry said it had downed over 250 drones and one civilian was killed. So, as I've laid out in previous shows, the future of warfare really is down to using drones and technology rather than just, grinding it out in trenches, because the technological field is so that now people are just going to use technology rather than sending people, because it's just not people don't really have the stomach to watch 4K people just get ground down in trenches. And if you have the technology, let the technology take the hit rather than people, because nobody likes when people die. Other than defense contractors and weapon manufacturers, just politically, presidents, elected officials do not like seeing their own be killed, even though Zelensky right now believes that he's going to retake territory and believes that he can win against Russia. Although I think most people realize that it's not going to happen unless the West is really willing to stake out everything they got on this war, and signs seem to suggest that they're not. Ukraine's going to kind of be, left up to Russia. I know Trump said that he believes that they could take back some territory. He said that publicly, but what he said privately is he knows Ukraine can't win the war. I don't think it's going to happen, because Russia has more than enough people to just throw out the problem until it's fixed. They have, clearly territorial advantages, and they have the weapon manufacturing advantages. So that's that. That's written by our dear friend Kyle Anzalone from the Libertarian Institute. Let's go to this article from Responsible Statecraft. Inflating Russians' missile costs hides our own weapon crisis, from Mike Friedenberg over at the Responsible Statecraft. So this article is very interesting, and I think it tells the tale and the difference between the U.S. and Russia when it comes to building weapons. The narrative that Moscow's war is unsustainable deflects from the real production and performance problems in American arms to Ukraine. The West likes to inflate the cost of Russian weapons as a way to suggest Moscow is in a financial bind and manipulate the narrative of a looming Ukraine victory while also making real inefficiencies of the U.S. defense industry. By assuming Russian weapons have the input costs similar to the U.S. Systems, or by conflating export price with Russia's internal costs, Western estimates produce misleading figures. These inflated costs bolster the narrative that the strain on Moscow is tremendous, while downplaying the increasing challenges for Ukraine and NATO to effectively counter Russia's relatively inexpensive missiles and drones. Moreover, these estimates obscure a stark reality. Due to difficulties in expanding production of prohibitively costly Western missiles combined with low real-world missile interception rates, even if the US and Europe sent all their air defense missiles to Ukraine, they would fall far short of being able, to stop Russian missiles and drone attacks, which just sad but true. We are not the manufacturing superpower that we once were anymore. BRICS and other countries seem to be taking over that position of being a manufacturer superpower because they have all the factories and the US had regulated themselves out of being competitive. I literally just spilled my body armor everywhere. Yeah, like China being an ally of Russia, as far as I know, they've denied heavily arming Russia, but I mean, it stands to reason that they probably have sent Russia some aid of some sort. I know that China has also kind of seek to mediate some kind of peace between Russia and Ukraine, but I don't think they're going to go as far as to do what Trump was trying to do, or at least alleging that he was trying to do, because at this point, it doesn't seem like Trump's really interested in peace in Ukraine. They've pursued it a little bit in Gaza, but they're just so far on one side where the US is still supplying intelligence and weapons and aid to Ukraine and weapons and aid and intelligence to Israel. I don't know if you were the Palestinians or Hamas, or if you were the Ukrainians and I don't know, the Azov battalion. Why would you believe I'm sorry, Russia, not the Azov battalion, but Russia and the Kremlin? Why would you believe that the West is coming to you in good faith? That doesn't seem entirely apparent to me at all, because every single time the U.S. negotiates with somebody, they usually use that as a pretense to get the other side to lower their guard, so that way the West can make advances against them. Anyways, continuing on here. Moreover, these estimates obscure stark reality. Okay, no, there we go. I already read that. Overstated costs and underestimated resilience. Western media, think tanks have consistently framed Russian missile expenditures to imply unsustainability. For example, Forbes Ukraine estimated Russia spent $7.5 billion on missiles at the war's first 2 months, 8.7% of Russia's 2022 defense budget. A Newsweek article citing Forbes Ukraine reported that in August 19th, 2024, attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure cost Moscow $1.3 billion. In the same article, the Institute for Study of War stated that Russia is likely unable to sustain such large-scale missile and drone strikes with regularity. Yet Russia sustained high-tempo operations over the past 6 months. Russia's sustained high-tempo operations over the past 6 months cannot help but cast doubt on this assessment. Many of the articles emphasizing the high cost of Russia's massive missile and drone strikes rely on missile cost estimates from the October 2022 Forbes Ukraine article, estimating that some key Russian missile costs, including the KH-101 at $13 million, the Caliber at $6.5 million, the Iskander at $3 million, and the P-800 Onyx at $1.25 million, the KH-22 at $1 million, and the Tochka U at $0.3 million. So it's kind of funny that Eddie Grimm, good to see you, man. Glad you're here. Ukraine is seemingly overestimating how much Russia is actually spending on their weapons. And I think, and anybody with a brain probably thinks that this is because they want the West to believe that this is a winnable war and that Russia could be bled dry. And if Russia could be bled dry, then the US looks at that as a strategic adversary that they want to be weakened so that way they can dominate them on the world stage. If Ukraine is leading them to believe that the cost of their weapons are so much greater, then the West's impression of this is that it's a good return on investment to basically use Ukraine as cannon fodder and give them more weapons that they're bleeding Russia dry. So as long as you can keep Russia firing and using all their weapons, then it's money well spent. Lindsey Graham, I believe, had said that it's worth all the Ukrainian lives. Uh, and that's literally what it is that basically Ukrainians are dying on the front line, so are Russians, basically at the altar of Western imperialism. Anyways, well, some of the Forbes USA or UA cost estimates seem reasonable. Most of them seem to arrive at costs suspiciously close to what the U.S. taxpayers would pay for comparable missiles. Finding such costs not credible, Defense Express Ukraine made a good faith effort to come up with more realistic missile cost estimates, including the KH-101 at 1.2 million as compared to the 1 million. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 1.3 or 13 million. Oh, geez, that's way worse. The KH-101 at $13 million. And Defense Express Ukraine says it's 1.2 million instead of 13 million. The caliber at approximately 1 million instead of, let me make sure I'm getting all this right, 6.5 million. The Iskander 501 million, where they're saying it was 3 million. The ballistic at 2 million, and the replacement for legendary SN 2022 Sunburn supersonic anti-ship cruise missile at approximately 3 million. While Defense UA does not give an estimate for the Kinzhal KH-47M2 hypersonic missile, given that it is essentially an air launch variant of the Iskander, the cost should be similar, about 2 million. So we're talking like in some situations a difference of degree by like 10. So good to see you, JC. Anyways, still to be fair, Russian military's budget lack of transparency means that in most cases one has to guesstimate. However, the input cost for weapons and production and development being much lower than those for the United States, one would expect Russian missiles to be less expensive than the production of the U.S. or Western European ones. Russian defense manufacturing labor costs an average of $1,200 per worker per month compared to at least $4,000 for US workers. Materials like steel, titanium, and composites are also less expensive in Russia. Russia's defense industry prioritizes mass production and efficiency, unlike the US defense industry, where profitability and shareholder returns are of greater importance, which just kind of hammers it home where Russia is seeming to try to make its standard of living better and to be a little bit more competitive in a manufacturing respect. The US has once again regulated a lot of this stuff out of their own capacity. Anyways, everybody, please like the video, share the video. If you're on Twitter listening, retweet it, all that good stuff. I'd really, really appreciate it. Good to see everybody here. Please leave a comment, all that good stuff in the chat. Leave a super chat if you'd be so generous. And one more time, consider becoming a channel member. Anyways, resuming on here. When it comes to weapon systems development, Russia typically adopts an evolutionary approach, incrementally improving existing systems, while the US is far more likely to pursue revolutionary designs, incorporating unproven technologies and inflating costs. Basically, if you can adventure around and design a whole bunch of stuff, then okay, well, you can bring in the money for investors and also get money for people who want to speculate, but who knows if it's actually going to be of any use. For example, Russia's battle-tested KH-47M2 Kinzhal hypersonic missile builds on proven platforms, while the United States has yet to field a hypersonic missile due to projects like the U.S. AGM-183 air-launched rapid response weapon program, which began in 2018. It took a much riskier approach and is now over budget, behind schedule, and in danger of being canceled after $1 billion invested. Jesus. So Russia is spending, let's see, if you add up all the conservative estimates, 1.2 million, 2.2 million, 3.2 million, $5.2 million, $8.2 million for a whole bunch of different missiles. The US is just trying to create one for $1 billion, while Russia is, for a few of those missiles, only cost them 8.2 billion or million dollars. Geez, yeah, it's just very, very stark difference. But even if it is not totally canceled and is eventually fielded, the ARRW, apologies, at $15 million to $18 million each, which is, to launch, you could launch about 2 of each of those missiles I read earlier for the price of just one of these ARRW missiles. So anyways, at $15 to $18 million each, there will be many times more expensive missile than the Kinzhal. Will have a similar range. It does not pack the same punch. Yes, its unpowered glide vehicle will be more maneuverable than the Kinzhal, but using that maneuverability can significantly impact its terminal impact velocity and range. Another example is the American PAC-3 Patriot interceptor and Russia's S-400 interceptor. Both are highly agile short-range missiles with similar ranges of about 100 kilometers, and both use active radar to track and hit their targets. Both have interception speeds of about Mach 5, yet the PAC-3 MSE apologies. The PAC-3 MSE missile costs $4 to $6 million, and the estimated cost of I'm not even going to try to read all that, missile is between $500,000 and $1 million. But how do they perform? An October 2nd Financial Times article gives a big hint, reporting that the Patriot interceptor rate stood at 37% in August, was slashed in the month of September to just 6%. Of course, it is standard operating procedure to overstate interception rates, but even if you buy the initial 37%, it was taking 5 interceptors to reach 90% of a chance of intercepting one Kinzhal at 6%. That goes up to 38 Patriot interceptors needed. So they need a lot of more expensive missiles to intercept just one Russian missile, according to all of this, which is just bleak. Very, very bleak. The Ukrainian war effort has been just a complete and total money pit that has just cost millions and millions of lives and has caused tons of Ukrainians to flee for good reason, because they don't want to get drafted and they don't want to get killed. They want to get shipped over to not the Donbass region. There was a specific city. I don't know why I can never remember it. But they called it the meat grinder. And the average life expectancy of a soldier was like 4 hours. So you're sending billions of dollars over to this war effort with a country that is 1/16 the size of the US to fight against Russia, a global, superpower to somewhat of a degree. It just doesn't make any sense. And like I've said throughout the show, if you're not willing to send US troops in, they're probably not going to win. According to Military Watch magazine and other publications, on May 16th, 2023, a Patriot system radar and at least one of its launchers were destroyed by a Kinzhal hypersonic missile despite launching 32 Patriot interceptors in an effort to protect itself. Unsurprisingly, this particular report has been contested, but given the long history of governments and vendors grossly overestimating air defense effectiveness and lack of transparency and veracity on the actual Ukrainian losses and the incredible interception rates regularly reported by Ukrainian Air Force, the report cannot be dismissed out of hand. We don't have much objective information about the 9M96E2's performance, but Russia also has a history of hyping performance of its S-400 air defense systems. Still, even if the aforementioned missile is ineffective as Patriot interceptors, it costs a whole lot less. So, as usual, the Russians can throw a whole ton more at the Ukrainians and the West than the West can throw at them. By overstating Russian missile costs, Western analysts exaggerate Russia's financial strain while providing cover for exorbitant missile prices being charged by Western defense contractors. This distortion obscures the reality that Russia's cost-effective missiles production provides a big advantage in the sustainability, while high Western missile costs combined with U.S. difficulties in rapidly expanding missile production is a huge disadvantage in any kind of sustained conflict and could be a fatal disadvantage in going up against a peer competitor that can throw thousands of missiles at our ships and even attack U.S.-based military facilities. So, as I said earlier, it's just a money pit for the U.S. and for Western countries to continue to support Russia. But I think that the U.S. and the EU want to continue to fight this war because they want to see Russia fall in status as compared to the West. The West wants to continue to rise and stay the global hegemon when it's clear that I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. And a lot of people elected Trump because they thought he was going to either end the war or bring US back to its primal role in the world. And I think we're seeing right now that that's just not the case. Um, the Republicans suffered a pretty bad, I don't want to say a blowout, but a pretty bad defeat over the elections just this past week. So unless they can start to deliver on some of the promises that they made, then I don't think they're going to win the midterms. They're definitely not going to win 2028 unless Trump starts delivering for the people. And I think part of that is ending some of the wars, or at least trying to wind them down to some degree. But the U.S. is still getting more and more involved with the Russia-Ukraine war. We're still heavily involved in the Israel Gaza war, although the Israel Gaza war has, I don't want to say wound down, but there's definitely less people dying now, which is a net positive. But it's pretty clear that anything the Israelis want, the U.S. is probably going to provide it. Like they're just going to get all the weapons they want. They're going to get all the moral and financial support they want. So unless that changes, I don't see a lot of people running out to support Republicans in the midterms, or for definitely not in 2028. I've talked about it a little bit, but there's like this astroturf, and maybe it's not astroturf, but like this odd campaign for John Fetterman from some conservatives, which is just very, very interesting to me. It's like, do you guys want to lose 2028, or like what's going on here that you're constantly promoting John Fetterman of all fucking people, the same dude who wants to cut your kids' dick and balls off? Anyways, neither here nor there. So that's all I want to talk about with Russia. Russia's clapping them cheeks. That's pretty much it. Before I continue on, please like the stream, share the stream. If you're watching on Twitter, retweet it. If you're on YouTube, please leave a thumbs up and leave a super chat if you would be so gracious. It greatly helps me out, and I appreciate all the donations and everything that everybody does to support the show. Trump is weighing options for launching a war with Venezuela, from our friend Dave DeCamp. The options include bombing military facilities, sending special operation forces to kill or capture Maduro, or sending troops to capture airfields and oil fields. The Trump administration has developed a series of options for launching attacks on Venezuela, the New York Times reported on Tuesday. As the U.S. continues its military buildup in the region, the report said that one option would involve bombing Venezuelan military facilities with the goal of collapsing military support for Maduro, in hopes that it would get the Venezuelan leader to flee. But critics of the approach argue that it would likely have the opposite effect, rallying the military around its embattled leader. The second option would be to send special operation forces such as Navy SEALs or the Army's Delta Force into Venezuela to try to kill or capture Maduro. Such an operation would put U.S. troops involved in the attack in serious risk of Maduro, risk since Maduro has the support of his military and a civilian militia that the Venezuelan government says has millions of members. So I think it's pretty clear, especially concerning the fact that Russia has sent the Wagner forces over to Venezuela, that they're just not going to roll over and take this. Venezuela is asserting their sovereignty over the U.S., and the U.S. can try to saber rattle and all this stuff, but if they want to go after Venezuela again, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk this time. It wasn't a cakewalk last time. We left in 2020 with our heads in shame. I don't like this. I don't think anybody should like it. I know people are saying that when Trump first got elected, because he was talking about Iceland and Greenland and Canada or whatever, that, this is the U.S. manifest destiny. I don't think overthrowing Maduro based on lies is a manifest destiny. And it's just not. If you think immigration is bad now, then wait until you create a total crisis in Venezuela, more than we already have, and see how many people flee Venezuela. It's going to be a lot, because even, and like I said, I wish I could find the article, but I'm pretty sure there were some members of the Trump administration that admitted that their policy in Venezuela had caused part of the migrant crisis. The third option would involve sending a much larger force into Venezuela to capture airfields and some of Venezuela's infrastructure and oil fields. The Washington Examiner has reported that the U.S. military planners believe the forces in the region are now sufficient to seize and hold key strategic facilities such as ports, airfields on Venezuelan territory. The Times report said that President Trump is reluctant to back an operation that would put U.S. troops at risk, or come with a chance of failure, and for that reason, other plans are being developed that would involve a naval drones and long-range weapons. A decision that isn't expected until after the until the aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford, which just left the Mediterranean, arrives near Venezuela, which I think it's probably closer to there now. If Trump orders attack on Venezuela, it would most certainly lead to full-blown war or quick decapitation of the government, which would likely plunge the country into chaos. The Times report cited Trump aides who said far more planning has gone into striking Maduro government than on what it would take to govern Venezuela should the operation succeed. Trump aides said that the president expressed reservations about attacking Venezuela and that he's asking what the U.S. could get out of it with a focus on Venezuela's vast oil resources. The push to launch a war in Venezuela is being led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who also serves as Trump's national security advisor, and Stephen Miller, the president's chief of domestic policy advisor. Well, you would think Stephen Miller, being this guy who allegedly is super concerned about immigration and all this other stuff, that he would probably be whispering in the president's ear, like, "Are you sure you want to go down this path? Because you're going to cause people to flee their country if they feel it's not safe, if they feel it's not stable." And you have this whole, what they call the Miami industrial complex, where all these Venezuelans and people from South America flee to go get benefits and basically be, what's the word I'm looking for here? Be taken care of inside Florida. So as you create more and more migrants, you create more and more pressure into the US to do these kind of efforts because they all are acting on behalf of their group. This is what a lot of people do, and this is why you can't have a multiracial society where people are all operating as their own ethnic enclaves, because then they get into groups and then they feel that their group should have more rights than everybody else. This is what a lot of Israelis, Indians, and Cubans, and now Venezuelans do. They go to Florida and then they act on behalf of their group and they advocate that their group should get this policy regime change against Venezuela because their way of life was so ruined that they left to go to the US. So they want the US to do something. I think that's very sadistic. It's very awful. And we shouldn't allow people to come here and advocate on behalf of their own group and do things that are detrimental to the US that benefit just their group. If we're going to do this, it should benefit the US. Do I think it's going to benefit the US? No, I don't. Anyways, let me finish this one up and we will continue on. The administration has asked the Justice Department to come up with legal justification for the attack, though any war with Venezuela without congressional approval would be illegal under the Constitution. The DOJ is expected to lean on claims that Maduro is the leader of a drug cartel, which lack of evidence have been strongly denied by the Venezuelan government. The administration has been coming under increasing scrutiny from Congress over its bombing campaign against alleged drug boats in the region, which has involved the extrajudicial execution of 64 people. The Pentagon has provided no evidence that backs up these claims about the vessels, about what the vessels are carrying, and has admitted to Congress that it doesn't know the identities of people that it's killing. I've been covering this for probably the last 3 weeks now, where we're just murdering people in cold blood in the ocean. And if you really believe they're drug dealers, then I think you could probably garner more support by capturing them, showing to the public that, hey, these are drug dealers. This is what we seized off the boats. These people are going to be detained. And then we're going to get answers about who, why, what, where, when, how, whatever, about what's going on here. I think you could garner a lot more support. But when it's just Pete Hegseth saying, "Trust me, bro," I don't think a lot of people are buying this, and I don't think it's faring well for the administration. I know I see some people who are playing trusters or people who support Trump saying that this is great, but I think you need a little bit of evidence because if, what was it, Wednesday night's loss, Tuesday night's loss, if that's any indicator, then I think they're going to need a little bit more than just "Trust me, bro." So let me run an ad real quick and I'll be right back. All right, we're going to take a second today to chill and tell you about the show's sponsors, Tiger Fitness. Make sure you go to the link below to get all the supplements that I use day in, day out, and beyond. As I always say, you do not need supplements to become all jacked and tan or to progress in your health journey, but they could definitely be a useful tool in that respect. So as you can see on tigerfitness.com, we got MTS Nutrition, Blackstone Labs, Ambrosia, HPN, Nutrix Research, America Labs, Alani Nu, Pump Chasers, there's Redcon One, Accent Sledge, plenty of different companies that pretty much have absolutely any supplement you could possibly think of: pre-workouts, fat burners, BCAAs, electrolyte mixes, you name it, it's on there. So go to Tiger Fitness through the link below. Use code Kyle at checkout to let them know that I sent you. Get your protein powder, you name it, anything that's going to help you stick to your diet and hopefully achieve your health goals. All right, thanks. Back to the show. Do it. Do it now. I watched Predator. I watched Predator last night. I was running around with my daughter while my wife was taking a nap because I wanted to catch up on it, and I want I want to go see Predator Badlands really, really bad. And get to the chopper. There were just so many good lines in the original Predator movie. So one more time, make sure you hit the like, thumbs up, retweet if you're on Twitter, all that good stuff. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there in the chat. Leave a comment, and I'll probably take some questions towards the end. At the end of the show, I'm probably going to talk about a home gym setup and all that good stuff, but we got more news to cover. So let's get into more news. Let me get back to here. The stage. Senate votes down resolution to block Trump from starting a war with Venezuela. So they've said that this is because they wouldn't have constitutional authority, but I think they would do it anyways, as in go to war with Venezuela. Senate votes down resolution to block Trump from starting a war with Venezuela. The Senate on Thursday rejected a resolution to stop President Trump from launching an attack on Venezuela without authorization from Congress. The resolution, led by Senators Tim Kaine, Rand Paul, and Adam Schiff, failed to pass the chamber by a vote of 49 to 51, with just two Republicans, Paul and Lisa Murkowski, supporting the bill. Ahead of the vote, the Trump administration officials were telling lawmakers that they currently didn't have plans to bomb Venezuela, part of a strategy to discourage Republicans from supporting the War Powers resolution. According to CNN, during the briefings, Trump officials still didn't rule out the potential of future military action. The Trump officials also said they currently lack the legal justification to launch strikes on land in Venezuela, but a U.S. official told CNN that the administration is seeking one from the Justice Department and doesn't plan to ask Congress for authorization. A clear violation of the Constitution, which requires congressional approval for the executive to launch a war. So the way they got around this before is everybody who listens to this show, I'm sure, is well familiar with. They used to use the authorized use of military force, the AUMF, to launch the wars before, instead of going to Congress, because Congress would have to go to the people, and people generally don't like war. Unless we were attacked, unless there's something imminent threat or something, there's no reason to go to war, especially not with Venezuela. And I know the claim always is that they traffic drugs, but even the Drug Enforcement Agency under Trump had said that, yeah, just Venezuela is not a large trafficker of drugs. Like, they're not the main one we're getting drugs from. Now, granted, Trump has taken steps against Colombia. I don't know how much I agree with all those steps, but he is going after a country that's responsible for drugs, and Venezuela is not one of the countries responsible for getting drugs into the U.S. Anyways, President Trump has sent mixed messages on the potential for a war with Venezuela, and according to the Wall Street Journal, he has expressed reservations over the idea of launching strikes on the country. But the massive U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean continues, as a U.S. aircraft carrier and its strike group are on their way to the region, and the administration has continued its illegal bombing campaign against alleged drug-running boats. The New York Times reported on Tuesday that President Trump is considering major potential escalations that could lead to a full-blown war with Venezuela. They include bombing military targets inside the country, sending special operations forces to kill or capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, or sending a much larger force to capture airfields and oil infrastructure, which we talked a little bit about in the last article. So let me pull this out of there. Yeah, it's not looking good. I don't think anybody knows where this is going to go. I think they want a war with Venezuela, but I think definitely after this past week, I think they're trying to balance what's feasible, what they want to do, and what will keep them in office. And I think if they really decide to launch this war against Venezuela, I don't think they're going to stay in office. I think they're going to be voted out. I think people are going to be very upset with them if they launch another war. I mean, we have the war with Iran. I know everybody says, oh, look, this was just the 12-day war. Trump ended it. the underlying issue is still there. And now the problem is that we're back to the Biden stance when it comes to Iran, which is no negotiations. The Iranians do not want to negotiate with the US if they're just going to get bombed and there's no talks about their nuclear capabilities, which they want to maintain their nuclear capabilities as something that they view as a sovereign right. Iran is a sovereign country, and unless we're planning to send in the military and troops to go overthrow Iran, which just nobody has a stomach for, then we have to accept that they're just going to enrich uranium to a small degree that can easily be negotiated away and inspected if we negotiate with them. Anyways, let's talk about Nigeria and what the hell is going on there, and what the hell is the US going to do? U.S. military crafts Nigeria intervention plans after Trump order. U.S. AFRICOM drawn up 3 escalatory plans for Nigeria, including light, medium, and heavy options submitted to them to the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, according to the New York Times. This is from the AFRICOM. The U.S. military has prepared options for a possible intervention in Nigeria after President Donald Trump ordered action to protect the Christians from targeted attacks by terrorist groups, according to media reports, which the thing that's always so funny about this in particular is that they don't care about Christians that are being killed in Gaza, Christians that are being killed in Syria. They just care allegedly about Christians in Nigeria. I'm sorry if I don't believe your crocodile tears when you're allowing the Israelis to kill Christians in Gaza. Justin Amash's family was killed in a church in Gaza by the Israelis. If you really cared that much about Christians, then you wouldn't be allowing that. You wouldn't be funding it. And also, you wouldn't have Ahmed al-Jahar or whatever, al-Jalani, that's his name. Al-Jalani, the current president of Syria. You wouldn't have him at the White House if you were really concerned about Christians because they're killing the Druze and Christians in Syria, where Assad was not allowing the same degree of murdering of Christians to go on in Syria. But of course, Assad had to go. U.S. defense officials said that AFRICOM has drawn up 3 escalatory plans for Nigeria, including light, medium, and heavy options, and submitted them to the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, the New York Times reported on Wednesday. The latest development came after Trump wrote on its Truth Social platform on Saturday that if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, Washington would immediately cut off all aid, which I think is the right move, especially if they're killing Christians in Nigeria. It's just, why would we ever send another country money like that? Trump said that the U.S. could go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, and order the Pentagon to prepare for possible action. According to the officials, the light option would involve partner-enabled operations with U.S. military and State Department supporting Nigerian forces against Boko Haram and other militant groups. The medium option envisions drone strikes on militant camps and convoys for the U.S. or though U.S. forces no longer have nearby bases in neighboring Niger and would face logistical and diplomatic challenges, which I think is probably the more likely one, that they would use drone strikes. The heavy option would be to deploy an aircraft carrier group and long-range strike assets, but officials said such a move is not currently a U.S. national security priority. Military officials said that U.S. forces are unlikely to end the West African country's decades-long insurgency and would have limited impact without an Iraq or Afghanistan-style campaign, which to say is not seriously being considered. It'd be a fiasco, retired Major General Paul D. Eaton said, adding that neither the public nor President Trump, beyond social media posts, appears to be interested in large-scale ground war in Nigeria, and any U.S. airstrikes would likely cause a little more than shock, which he likened to pounding a pillow, which is pretty funny. In Nigeria, security is threatened by a mix of terrorist groups, including Boko Haram and ISWAP, as well as armed gangs, ethnic militias, and indigenous people of Biafra. And herder-farmer conflicts often root in economic and social tensions. According to U.S.-based Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLED, there have been 1,923 attacks on civilian targets in Nigeria this past year, with only 50 directly linked to Christian identity. The ACLED noted that while insurgent groups often frame their attack campaigns as anti-Christian, the violence frequently makes no distinction and harms all communities. So just another country that the U.S. is seeking to go to war with, bomb, do some kind of campaign. that just won't benefit the American people. We were told that we were getting the peace president, and then they dub it the Department of War, and now we're going to fight a war with Venezuela and Nigeria. Just does not seem like a good idea at all. It doesn't seem worth it. It's tragic that Christians are dying in Nigeria, and to be clear, it's tragic that anybody is dying anywhere. But the realistic thing to kind of ponder from the U.S. perspective is it worth it? What will be the net result if the US goes into any of these territories and starts funding a war or fighting a war? It's going to be more death, and what comes after isn't guaranteed to be anything good. So I don't know if that's really the right option. To me, it doesn't seem like it is, and I don't know any. I really haven't heard anybody really support this. I've heard some people that are definitely somewhat politically close to me and friends of mine that said they would support airstrikes in Africa for killing white people, but um, I don't know, man. I get having your identity being an important part of who you are and what you seek to advocate for. I'm okay with that. I understand that. And I actually think it's a noble goal. I, however, don't see it as a reasonable and realistic thing to try and protect people around the world from the United States. Um, as in using the United States as a military to go defend people globally. Even if you want to defend just white people globally, I don't see using the US military as a good means to do that, because all you're going to do is just end up killing more people and probably make the situation worse. So I think that's all I got for foreign policy stuff. Let's talk about Zoran Mamdani. So, maybe I should pull this up. Who is Zoran Mamdani? I'm sure everybody knows, but just in case nobody does, I'll pull it up on Google so that way I'm just giving you the unfettered truth. Let me see. Go here, down there. Zoran Mamdani is an American politician, mayor-elect of New York City, a member of the Democratic Party and Democratic Socialists of America. He has served as a member of the New York State Assembly for the 36th district since 2021, representing the Queens neighborhood of Astoria. Brand new mayor, and he is an open Democratic Socialist. He was born in Uganda, Kampala, Uganda, in 1991, October 18th. And he ran for mayor in New York against Andrew Cuomo, and much to the dismay of Trump and even Elon Musk, he ended up winning the election. Do I think this means that the U.S. is going to fall to Islam? No, I think it's ridiculous. And anybody saying that, I think, is just, they're usually a Zionist or just a boomer that has no idea what they're talking about, because there are Muslims in cities, but who's the biggest foreign lobbying group in the entire United States? It ain't Ugandans. It ain't Muslims. It ain't Islamists. There's not Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, a Somali congresswoman. Should she be in Congress? No. If you are advocating on behalf of another country, you do not belong in the US government. This is the problem when you have mass migration. You invite in a whole bunch of people, especially people who don't assimilate, because there's nothing to assimilate to at this point, because we've had immigration be such an issue for so long, that people come in and now they advocate on behalf of their own group. I was talking about this earlier, so not to rehash that, but it's just, you can't have this kind of immigration policy. Anyways, I want to talk about no. Okay, no, this is the right article. Apparently I can't zoom in. There we go. We're going to talk about the demographics who voted for Zoran Mamdani and what Trump can do about it. So let me go to this article here. How key demographic groups voted in 2025 according to the AP voter poll. Democratic candidates saw victories across key races Tuesday, and there were signs there's plenty of room for Democratic Party to make up the ground amongst groups that move toward President Donald Trump in the 2024 election. That finding comes from the AP voter poll, a sweeping survey of more than 17,000 voters in New Jersey, Virginia, California, and New York City that explains who voted in each election and their views on top issues in their state. Even with major wins, the survey also exposed fault lines for Democrats. Young men were less likely than young women to support Democrats in the governor races, and Jewish voters in New York City appeared to be wary of supporting the Democratic nominee, Zoran Mamdani. Here's a look at how key demographic groups in 2025 voted according to AP voter poll. So, real quick, before we start digging into that, uh, women tend to be more liberal than men. It's just a fact of nature because of their egalitarian nature, communitarian nature, however you want to kind of view it. Generally, younger women who are single are more left wing just by virtue of being women. Jewish people who were skeptical of Mamdani is probably because the heavy propaganda push saying that he's some radical Muslim, and he is a socialist, so he is radical to some degree, but that he's some jihadist or something like that. And then people always throw out, oh, he said globalize the intifada, which just nobody cares. It's just, who cares? There's not going to be some giant intifada in the United States. There may be terrorist attacks if we continue to support Israel the way we do, but there's not going to be some crazy Muslim takeover of the West. When people go on about how Muslims are going to take over the world, it's like, okay, let's zoom out here for a second. They weren't able to kick the Israelis out in the last almost 70 years or last 80 years. The Palestinians and Hamas are getting their asses handed to them by the Israelis. They can't even kick the US out when the US is 5,000 miles away. And you really think they're going to come over here and take over? When I hear people saying that, I'm like, do you have any idea what you're talking about? Vast majority of young voters in New York City voted for Mamdani. Mamdani, 34, will be the city's youngest mayor in over a century. And I should mention that they also ran Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, which who the hell heard of him? You ran the dude who was Netanyahu's lawyer and who destroyed New York City in 2020, and you thought he was going to win. Come on. Young voters in New York City overwhelmingly backed him in his generational showdown with former governor Andrew Cuomo, who ran as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. About 3/4 of the New York City voters under 30 cast a ballot for Mamdani. They were a relatively small portion of the city's electorate, and they were also much more likely older voters to say it was the first time, or they were much more likely than older voters to say it was their first time voting in a mayoral election. Older voters are more likely to back Cuomo than Mamdani, but a significant share still back the Democratic nominee. About 2 in 10 Mamdani voters were under 30, while voters for Cuomo and Sliwa skewed much older. Mamdani is identified as the Democratic Socialist throughout his campaign, following the brand of U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC. About 1/4 of New York City voters said they identified as Democratic Socialists, with about 4 in 10 voters in New York City under 30 saying they identify this way. So, anyways, there's a little bit of a poll here. Let me make sure everything's good. Everyone, please make sure you like the video, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Percent of New York City voters in each category who cast a ballot for Mamdani, Cuomo, 18 to 29, 78% of voters when polled voted for Mamdani. 30 to 44, 66%, 45 to 64, 43%, and 65 and over, 36%. All those percentages went for Mamdani. 18% went to Cuomo, 28% went to Cuomo, 47%, and 55% of 65 and over went to Andrew Cuomo. Cheryl performed well among Black Hispanic voters. This is in New Jersey. Not really concerned about that. Muslim voters supported Mamdani, while most Jewish voters supported Cuomo. Surprise, surprise, people have an in-group preference. Mamdani will be New York's first Muslim mayor, and he won the vast majority of Muslim voters. Shocking. About 9 in 10 Muslim voters supported Mamdani, according to the AP voter poll. They made up a very small voter group. About 4% of New York City voters are Muslim. No other candidate had such uniform support from a religious group, but Cuomo claimed the support of about 6 in 10 Jewish voters, while only about 3 in 10 cast a ballot for Mamdani. Jewish voter support for Cuomo was the culmination of months of anxiety and division within the country's largest Jewish community, as many voters and leaders expressed concern about Mamdani's harsh criticism of Israel. About half of Jewish and Muslim voters in New York City said the candidate's positions on Israel were a major factor in their vote, which shocking when Israel's a major issue in the United States right now. It's not a surprise that people are like, whoa, 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 we have to vote for somebody that's taking the opposite of the establishment position, which the establishment position, including Trump, because people always seem to want to like throw Trump out of this establishment circle. He's been the presidential, the president elect for now, once his term's done, 8 years. He will have served 2 full terms, and he was the Republican candidate for 3 elections in a row. Stop with this. He's anti-establishment. He is the Republican establishment for better or for worse at this point. Jewish voters' support for Cuomo was a culmination. Most Muslim voters supported Mamdani. So here's the little graph: Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Muslim, other, and none. 27% identify of all New York City voters identify as Catholic. 20% are Protestant. 16% are Jewish. 4% are Muslim. 10% are other, and 23% are none. Then the percent of New York City voters in each who cast a ballot for Mamdani, 33% of Catholic votes went to Mamdani, 42% of Protestant voters went to Mamdani, 32%, 92% of Muslim voters went for Mamdani, 62% of other, and none went to Mamdani as well. And the only area where, or no, I'm sorry, 52% of Catholics went for Cuomo, 49% of Jewish went for Cuomo, 64% of Jewish went to Cuomo, 6% of Muslim went to Cuomo, and then other 32%, and none went to 20%. So obviously, this doesn't tell us exactly who's who, but it gives us kind of an idea. Let me get this out of the way there. Young voters broke hard for Democrats, but especially women. Most voters under 30 voted for the Democratic candidates in New Jersey and Virginia governor's races, but the New York City mayoral campaign. But young women were particularly likely to support Democrats. About 8 in 10 women under 30 supported Cheryl, New Jersey, compared to just over half of men under the age of 30. That was similar in Virginia, where roughly 8 in 10 women under 30 voted for Spanberger, and about 6 in 10 men under 30 did. There were gender divides amongst older voters as well, but they weren't as large. Just half of women ages 65 and older, for instance, supported Cheryl, compared to 4 in 10 men 65 and older. Which just tells you more and more. Federal government worker households supported Spanberger. That's for Virginia. All right, I think that's it. So once again, do I think that Islam is coming to take over the West and put burqas on every woman, and we're going to be having Sharia law in the United States tomorrow? No. There's like always this fear about it, but I actually looked this up, and it's unconstitutional to have Sharia law in the United States. Now, granted, if some Muslim groups did take over a US city, then okay, maybe, but I still think that's highly unlikely. Just especially with the not the thirst, but the demand for mass deportations. I just don't see this as like a realistic thing to happen in the United States. Anyways, let's talk about what Trump could do to stop Zoran Mamdani. Is there going to be anything good in there? I guess we'll find out. How Trump could hamper Zoran Mamdani's New York agenda. From the BBC. Just moments after Zoran Mamdani won his battle to become the next mayor of New York City, the rising political star zeroed in on his next fight, taking on the president of the United States. In his victory speech on Tuesday, Mamdani turned to the cameras directly to taunt the president. So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have four words for you. Turn the volume up, he said. Minutes later, Trump responded on his social media on his social media site, Truth Social, and said, and so it begins. President Donald Trump has decried 34-year-old as the communist future of the Democratic Party. Trump endorsed Andrew Cuomo, a former Democratic governor who was running as an independent, and told New Yorkers that if they chose Mamdani, he would cut funding to the city. The morning after Mamdani won, he warned the people would flee New York. It's not the first time Trump, a born and raised New Yorker, has tried to meddle in the city's affairs, from ramping up immigration raids to attempting to cancel funding for the congestion pricing, a policy he opposes. Shocking. A New York City Democrat liberal is trying to mess in the politics of New York City. As far as I'm concerned, I think you kind of got to give up the major cities for now. I don't know. I've never heard any realistic plan to take back the cities. So I don't know. They're kind of shitty, anyways. I mean, I understand that's where like institutional power is, but unless somebody has like a realistic idea of how to do that, I just don't see it as possible. Mamdani seems unflustered. If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him, he said during his victory speech. Since coming into office, Trump has wielded federal power against several Democratic run cities, sending National Guard troops to cracking down on immigration across the U.S. He has also cut billions of funding to some cities since the government shut down on October 1st, including New York, where he froze $18 billion in federal money for major infrastructure projects, which I'm good with that. Political experts told the BBC that Trump could easily slash more, and that could hamper Mamdani's campaign promises to reduce the cost of living. The self-described Democratic Socialists had campaigned for free and faster buses, rent freezes for rent-stabilized housing, and universal childcare and city-run grocery stores, amongst other policy goals. Now, my understanding of all of this is actually the mayor cannot do like any of these policies. I know that sounds nice to liberals that you would have all this free stuff coming in, but as I understand it, he actually is just not able to do this. He's not able to do that as mayor. And not only that, anytime the government really starts to interfere in these kind of things, they typically end up worse. The reality is that the mayor elect will have to focus a lot of his attention on President Trump and the attacks on New York as opposed to all the issues he wants to deal with, said Julian Zelizer, a professor of history at Princeton University. It will be a problem for the city, and it will also be a problem and a challenge for the mayor-elect to stay focused. Mamdani did not respond to requests for comment from the BBC. An $8 billion federal funding hole. Mamdani, a former state assemblyman, faces several challenges aside from Trump in accomplishing his ambitious policy goals, policy experts say. He suggested he could raise $10 billion in revenue by increasing taxes for the wealthy and corporations and the top 1% of earners in New York, but that would require approval from the state's governor, which he would probably never get. Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul, who's facing a tough reelection bid next year, has so far been hesitant to support Mamdani's tax plan. Trump ally Elise Stefanik has said she will speak the Republican nomination for the state's top job. Trump could poke further holes in these plans if he cuts federal funds, which last year comprised about $8.5 billion, or 7% of the city's total budget. There's going to be money. There's going to be a money issue to do anything in that city, Mr. Zelizer said. But if federal dollars start to deplete, that makes it much harder to do anything new. What do you notice about all these people in this picture? I'm just saying they don't look like white Christian European dudes, which is just a heartbreak. Anyways. Those funds are used for a host of services, including housing department, emergency response to disasters, and children's services, as well as the education funds for lower income students and school meals, according to the New York City Independent Budget Office. Trump has not specified which federal funds he would target. New York is legally required to provide some of these services, such as funding for homeless shelters. That means that without federal funding, the city and the state government would have to make up the difference, putting pressure on other programs said Sarah Parker, a senior research and strategy officer with the New York Independent Budget Office. There are a lot of contingency plans being drawn at the city and state level for a whole lot of scenarios. Trump would likely face legal challenges for withholding funds that have been approved by Congress, which include food aid, said Justin De Benedicts Kessner, a public policy professor at Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. But it does slow down the process of getting those funds to the people who need them. So really, I don't really have that much of a problem. We're going to talk about the National Guard here in New York here in a minute. I really don't have that much of a problem with Trump stopping funds to New York. The U.S. already doesn't have enough money as it is, to be completely honest with you. So why should we continue to send funds to New York if you're going to do things that are unconstitutional and not in the vision of the nation? And especially if it's making life for New Yorkers worse and worse and worse. I don't see that as the most offensive thing in the world. I know some people would probably like to think that it's, oh, he's just this awful meanie taking away all this money, but that's just not the case, really. Um, there's something I'm looking for, but I can't find it. All right, that'll do. Anyways, let me make sure I pull this back up and we'll resume reading from the article. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Retweet this if you're watching on Twitter. I know there's a few you watching, so once again, retweet, like, all that good stuff. Trump has also used the threat of law enforcement against Democratic-led cities. He has deployed National Guard troops across the country, including Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, Washington, D.C., framing the cities as crime-ridden places that need federal intervention. And, I mean, he's honestly right. When there's homeless people all over the street, when I was in New York last time, New York City, that is, there were homeless people just everywhere. You can't have that in a city. Eventually, something needs to be done. You can't just let these people roam around the city with their dicks in their hands, pissing, shitting, and doing just disgusting stuff all over the city. It's foul, and something needs to be done about it. He has so far refrained from sending the troops to the largest U.S. city, but political experts said that could change. He already has a template, Mr. Zelizer said. It's hard to imagine that doesn't happen. Mamdani has said he would turn to legal challenges to respond to National Guard deployment in New York, as other states have. Many of the cases are still in limbo and working their way through the courts. Ramping up ICE raids. Political experts also expect Trump to expand his immigration crackdown in New York, which has been a sanctuary city since the 1980s. Good. That means the city limits cooperation with federal immigration authorities. The administration has already ramped up enforcement in the city's immigration courts, where U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have arrested hundreds of people arriving for mandatory immigration hearings. Mayor Eric Adams has mostly cooperated with the administration, but Mamdani, who came to the U.S. from Uganda when he was 7, signaled a different course. He said New York would remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, empowered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this, to get any of us, you'll have to go through all of us, he said on election night. Adams did so after Trump's Department of Justice dismissed federal bribery and fraud charges against him. The move led to resignation of the top New York prosecutor, who claimed Adams' lawyer had asked the Justice Department officials to drop the case in exchange for Trump's immigration policy, which honestly, I don't see New York as just this immigrant safe haven, or that it should remain like that. New York is a city in America, and it should be a city for Americans. If Americans go to New York City, they should feel welcome. They should expect a clean and orderly city. So if you're pulling funding from them and suing, a recalcitrant governor or mayor, I'm not bothered by that really at all. And I mean, you have a different language, people holding a sign from a different language, just ridiculous. Mamdani will likely take time to craft a strategy for responding to Trump's first moves, as he won't take office until January, said Bob Shapiro, a political science professor at Columbia University. Other Democratic city leaders have taken a variety of approaches, including progressive Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who has frequently pushed back against the president. Trump once threatened to pull the World Cup games from her Massachusetts city. In San Francisco, Mayor Daniel Lurie reportedly relied on the technology industry leaders to dissuade Trump from sending National Guard troops to the city, arguing it would affect the economy. Mamdani could make similar moves in New York to avoid federal troops, calling on Wall Street leaders from a city where Trump made his career in real estate, Mr. Shapiro said. In a policy document on Trump proofing New York City, the mayor elect said he planned to hire an additional 200 lawyers to beef up the city's legal department in response to the Trump administration's presidential excess. Mamdani faces big challenges in trying to implement his ambitious policy agenda, so he may pick and choose his battles with the president to build support among anti Trump New Yorkers for certain policies. I think he'll engage with Trump if that helps him accomplish his policy goals, he said. And I think he's smart enough. He's a smart enough politician that he won't do that unless it does. So I think that's it from the article. So let me close all this out. And yeah, so the fight may be on. I don't know how much Trump is going to fight. If history is any indicator, then Trump really doesn't fight that much. The saying "Taco Trump," it's pretty apt. It's pretty accurate. Trump always does chicken out. So if Mamdani puts up a little bit of a fight, I really don't think Trump's going to really go after him that hard. Every single time they're in negotiations, they always kind of bow out, right? They come in with unreasonable expectations. And then when the opposing party says that we're not going to meet those unreasonable expectations, they kind of throw their hands up and say, all right, well, fuck it, more war then. And I think that's going to be a similar situation here where Mamdani, if he fights back even a little bit, it'll get lost in the courts. And then Mamdani will ultimately win the day against the Trump administration. And really, I actually think that's bad for America. I think that if Mamdani gets his agenda in, New York will become even more of a shithole. Could I be wrong? Maybe, but I don't think I will be because we know that just socialism doesn't work. So I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. And I think the next, now 3 years are going to be very interesting as to whether or not Trump's actually going to put up a fight. And I don't think he will. And I think New York City is going to become an area where they just flood in more and more people. And the quality of life for the average New Yorker will get worse and worse and worse. And it's a little tragic, if I'm being honest. I don't like it. But there's nothing I could do about it. So that's all the news I wanted to get to today. I want to talk about my garage gym just a little bit and some of the stuff. Sorry, hiccups. Some of the stuff I have there and what it might be like for you to build a garage gym. So let me pull up this tab. And I was trying to find the video of me doing pull-ups, but this will just have to do for now. So you can see I'm holding my coffee mug in my home gym, and there's my bench and everything. Building a home gym, I think, is the optimal way to do things. So we can see there's a whole ton of stuff here. I don't know, where is the video of me doing pull-ups, making fun of people in the Trump administration for how awful they were at pull-ups. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyways, a gym membership for most people is going to cost, if you go to Planet Fitness, I think it's like $10 a month. If you go to a nicer gym, you're looking anywhere from like 50 to maybe even like $100. Like I know there's a place called Burn Boot Camp by me, and they're like $200 a month, but you get like training sessions. It's a nice gym, it's clean, and also that price is going to keep away some of the riffraff. So you're going to be with mostly like quality people, and you're probably going to get something out of it. I bought the Makolo Power Rack, which comes with a cable thing, two cables, a few attachments, a pull-up bar, and also like guards. So that way, if you're doing like squats and stuff, you can fall down to that. And then obviously the barbell holders that go on the power rack. That was about $500. So right there, we're at 500. I got a nice leg extension and leg curl combo. And to be completely honest with you, I actually like using that more than all the leg extensions I've ever used at any gym ever. So that ran me about $200. So right there, we're at about $700. The X3 system is very pricey, but I do like its versatility. And I do like a lot of the exercises that you can do with it and the way they feel. That will run you, if you get it on sale, probably, I think it's like $400, but if you get it off sale and you get the Elite Band, I think you're looking at about $600. I think it's worth it because of just the versatility. So right there, you're looking at it. If you go just, let's say, full price, we're looking at about $1,300 right there. And you don't have any like plates yet. So usually most weights are about $1 a pound. That could get pretty pricey. So I think if I had to put a number on it, and you could always go used for this stuff too. Personally, I'd recommend just going new for like the leg extension and the power rack, because if you buy a used power rack, then you have to disassemble it, and just that's a nightmare. I would say if I had to put a number on it, I think I would say probably around $4,000 for all the stuff I've spent on my home gym. But I can completely work out at home and get a full body workout with over 400 pounds of resistance easy. And that's really like most what you need. I do have one of those machines that has like the pads for like a pec deck and a lat pull down, a leg press, and all this stuff. I don't really like those because they do all the exercises you want them to do, but they don't do any of them well. So I think you probably save more in the long run, because there's always like the maintenance costs that the gym throws at you. There's drive time and there's all this other stuff. I think it's worth it. So I wish I would have prepared a video. I literally took one on my GoPro right here, but I'm a retard and I didn't get it ready for today's show. So I think a home gym's the way to go. I had Mike from Hybrid Resistance. That's his channel name. And we talked about that quite a bit as well. So yeah, home gyms are pretty cool. So I wish I would have had a little bit more prepared for it, but I think I'm going to wrap right around here unless you guys got questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Lots of interesting stuff going on. Be sure to watch 5 till midnight tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Always enjoyable to do that with that show. I don't have any plans for guests anytime soon, really. I kind of like doing this by myself because I just can rant and rave as long as I want, stop when I want, and cover the news that I want, and I don't have to worry about scheduling people. That was a big frustration for me there for a little bit. So I think that's going to be it for me today. As always, good to talk to everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I think with that, I'm out of here.